Welcome to When I Fell in Love with Hip Hop. I'm your show host, Rbl Posse. We tuning live from St. Louis, Missouri. Today's guest is, can you tell them who you are and where you're from for those that might not know who you are in a new generation?
Yeah, man. It's your boy Black C, one half of that group, legendary group out the Bay Area, RBL Posse, man. Straight up out of Frisco, aka San Francisco, California.
All right, for sure, for sure. So when did you fall in love with hip hop?
Man, I fell in love with hip hop probably after I heard Sugar Hill Gang. You know what I mean? When Moms played Sugar Hill Gang, that probably was around 78, 79, somewhere around there, I believe. And yeah, from there, it never left me. You know what I mean? That's why even on my first album, I sampled that beat because that was the first song that I heard slapping when somebody had actually was rhyming rhymes over a beat. You know what I mean? So yeah, shout out Sugar Hill Gang, man, and yeah, we definitely use that on that a lesson to be learned.
For sure, for sure. So how was it growing up in Hunters Point and Harbor Road? What type of things did you experience growing up?
I mean, just like any other, ghetto urban neighborhood, man. It was, concrete jungle projects. Some days it's fun. You got, growing up with a bunch of kids around you. That's what it was, pros and cons. You know what I mean? Like I say, the pros was, it was like a family thing. It takes a village to raise you, so it was like a big old village. Your friend's mom would keep you in check. You had a bunch of dudes out there because it was so big. So many. How can you say, like dwellings or whatever, houses or whatnot, all connected. It's 8 houses in one building. It's just a bunch of buildings, on Harbor Road. So up in Hunters Point, that was just one section. Hunters Point, we had a whole bunch of different projects around there, from West Point to Oakdale. You got Shoreview, Double Rock. I mean, it's a bunch of them, and that's just one side. That ain't even going over to the other side to Fillmore. You know what I mean? In Sunnydale. So Frisco is one of them slept-on cities, man, where they think it was just like a tourist town, but really it's a concrete jungle. We probably got more projects than probably any neighborhood, except for probably like Chicago's. When you get to Chicago and like in New York, theirs is a little bit bigger and broader, whatnot. But we got a bunch of slabs of concrete around there, So yeah, people will get it twisted thinking they're in some tourist town. But it wasn't no different than any other neighborhood in any other ghetto. Like I say, we had pros and cons. And some of the cons was like you said, being low income. Not as many opportunities and things of that nature. You know what I mean? But we didn't know. We like I was growing up, I didn't realize we was in low income housing. We was having fun every day. Going out there back flipping on mattresses and shit like that, and putting bikes together, mongooses, GTs, or whatever. That was the thing back in our days. You know what I mean? Putting together bikes and who was the dopest in backflips and things of that nature. So yeah, wasn't no different until the dope game kicked in and
Right,
you know,
right, right.
we got territorial.
For real, for real. So out of them 17 siblings you have, are you the oldest or the youngest?
Now I'm in the middle. I'm sort of like in the middle. I got a bunch of older brothers. Yeah, I'm somewhere like in the middle. Yeah, I'm like probably smack right dab in the middle. I'm probably because we all got different moms. And as far as with my mom, I'm the oldest. With my mom, with it's three of us out of
Okay.
the 16. So us three, I'm the oldest, but I got a bunch of siblings that's older than me.
Okay. So my next question, man, what influenced you what influence did you have by the drug trade at that time? Like, and did Freeway Ricky Ross play any role in that? Because I know he was in California. He the one started the, crack cocaine era and shit.
Yeah. Nah, he didn't have no. I didn't know nothing about him up in where we was at. Probably some of the bigger bosses probably knew about him. People probably like James Beasley and them, probably like my uncle Flop and all them. They probably dealt with that. Like us when you buying probably a brick or less, you probably didn't know nothing about. You probably heard of his name, but really we had our own bosses around there who was doing their thing up there. We was in Northern California. He was all really main part of that Southern Cal thing. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So
And
it's different. Southern Cal is different from Northern California.
right, what made you get in the dope game though?
Really just seeing going outside and seeing, really I used to see it, but I didn't really get influenced by it until I actually seen one of my homies who started cutting school and he started being fly as hell. Fresh as hell. We coming outside, he got on fresh feline sweatsuits and feelers and shit, and you know the latest shoes come out. The Adidas top 10s, and he ended up buying some brand new reptiles, and we knowing them motherfuckers cost like $150 or something like that, and we like, damn, I'm trying to get my mama to go put some shit on layaway or something, and he just buying shit, and that right there kind of influenced me. I was just like, it was my boy Quindell, rest in peace. He was the first one just hanging out. We going to school. He's sitting out there with a bundle in his pocket, getting his money. Fresh, like I said, fresh feline sweatsuit on with shoes to match. And, you know, I'm going to school in some motherfucking Mervin shit. And I'm just like, damn, I'm going to school wearing this shit my mama done fucking got from the department store, Emporiums and Mervins. I'm like, man, shit, I got to switch up. And
right. So you jumped off the porch.
Jumped off the porch and ended up getting fronted. I ended up going to him, asking who he was dealing with. And he told me who he was dealing with, and I ended up trying to go to him, but he was kind of put me on the back burner. So I ended up running into this other OG who ended up fronting me a quarter ounce Coke. And back then you had to rock it up yourself in a little shaker bottle. We used to go to the record stores and you used to have to shake it up, rock it up yourself. And back then we wasn't even using baking soda. We was mixing that shit with B12. And
damn.
Put it up in the shaker bottle. Yeah.
That's crazy. So what started the funk between Hunters Point, Sunnydale, and Fillmore? And do y'all still static now? Like, do y'all still got problems down to
Nah, we brought the truce back when our album dropped out. But what started it was just female shit. You know, one of the dudes from our neighborhood was dating some girl from over there, and you know how that shit be. You date one of the popular dudes' girls on the under. I guess he was, you know, creeping off with her. They found out, snatched him up out his whip and shit, and put hands on him, you know, and that kind of started it right there. You know, we end up kind of getting into a funk. It led to that, to little parties here and there. So this place called the Maritime Hall that everybody used to go to downtown, where people from different sections would come party. And, you know, like I said, it kind of carried over from that fight with my boy getting his car took and getting his car snatched and they kind of, you know, totaled his car up, beat that motherfucker up. But so, yeah, motherfucker seen them at the Maritime Hall, got a little revenge, and from there it was on. You know, it used to be just fights. And then, you know, once one motherfucker pull out a pistol, start busting, you know,
it's that.
You know,
that's real. And that's what I was gonna ask you. What's the difference between the gang activity in the Bay Area and in LA?
LA, you know, it's more you know, they kind of got their little pecking order and shit. You know, it's Crips and Bloods. You know, where they over that, they kind of push that rag. You know, it might, you know, from Pyru to Bloods or whatever, you know, however you want to call it, man, Damus or whatever, and Crips. And we don't do that up in the Bay Area. Bay Area is mainly neighborhoods, projects. You know, we claim streets, you know, things of that nature. So it's more like turfs. So ours was more called, like, it was more, instead of gang banging, even though sometimes we refer to it as gang banging, but it's more like turf wars. You know what I mean? So we was really funking. Our turf would be funking with the turf in Fillmore, you know, or the turf in Sunnydale, you know, things like that. You know, the turf, you know, Lakeview turf will link up with our hood, you know. So it's more a neighborhood thing, you know, projects. You know, we never, you know, a few people try to come in and try to bring the color thing, but we never understood it. That shit like was weird to us, like claiming a color. Like it just didn't work with us. You know what I mean? I mean, don't get me wrong. It did help us, make us turn up a little bit when the movie Colors came out, because we was already on some turf shit. But then we seen how they was really, once that really gave us that insight, and we seen how they was down there turning up a little bit, it made us go a little bit crazy. I ain't gonna lie. We got a little influenced by movies like South Central, Colors, and even Menace to Society. You know,
right.
Each one of those movies kind of made us turn it up a notch, and we went kind of crazy in our city.
For sure. Can you explain the situation that got you shot by a Sunnydale member?
Yeah, we ended up jumping one of them on 3rd Street. You know, they came riding through, you know, one of them hot days, you know, everybody out. And yeah, the dudes end up stopping. They had heart. Like we outside deep, females out, and they come driving down. Our 3rd Street is sort of like a Crenshaw in out there in LA. In LA, you know what I mean? Where it's like one of them streets, main streets, where everybody pulling their whips out, driving up and down, kind of high side, showing out or whatnot.
Yeah, see, ours Natural Bridge.
Right, and that's what our Third Street is. So we out there hanging out, everybody there at the school, and the dudes pulled up. They like 3 cars deep, and they was outnumbered. I give them they props though, because they jumped out the car and they give a fuck, and they just started trying to holler at females and standing around, and a few ROGs kind of walked up to them and got at them and told them kick rocks, y'all got to tear up out of here, and they wasn't trying to hear it. So motherfuckers start throwing them things, start jumping them, chasing them down the street. Whooped their ass, got them up out of there. And what they did was they went back to the neighborhood, and we all went up to our block, start talking about it. After something happened, everybody congregate and start talking about what they did and what happened and all that shit. And they snuck up on us. As soon as we was out there talking, they came around the corner like 4 or 5 cars deep, just letting loose. Boom, 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 boom. As soon as I looked into it, I got hit in the face. I was about half a block away. And I seen everything, seen them all shooting it, out the window, and I got hit instantly in the face.
Damn. So does it still affect you today, like your wounds and shit, like the shit you?
Yeah, I mean, because thank God, I mean, I got hit with 2 shots from the 12 gauge, so it hit me all in the side. Yeah, it hit me all in the side of my face, so I was fucked up. I still got a bunch of buck shots all in my head. The thing that I was lucky about, they had a whole bunch of mixed shit. It was like buck double odd. It was like the regular buck shots mixed with bird shots, and motherfuckers.
Right, it wasn't no straight dirt slugs and no shit like that.
Hell no, it wasn't nothing like that. Or even the ones with them big ass barbarians in it, the real slugs. It was just a bunch of random shits up in there. So that's what really saved me.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing. Yeah, it's a gift and a curse, for real.
Yeah, I was real close, but the shit hit me and it spread it. So it hit me all on the side of my body, my face, and everything. And I went instantly blind and it dropped down. I was strapped to everything, dropped my gun, start grabbing my face, and a couple people got shot out there. Some people got hit with 9s and all that shit. And I got, thank God I didn't get hit with none of them. Grazed and shit, but mainly got hit with the first 2 shots from that 12 gauge, and went instantly blind, and I had to get a prosthetic eye. That's why I always kind of wear glasses, but now I got a glass eye, and I can take my shit out like how Fetty Wap be looking, with his shit missing and all that. That shit kind of crazy how you do that, but I do the same thing. You can pull it out, clean it, do whatever, prosthetic.
Man, that's crazy. Hey, so did that start a whole nother war though, like a real war? Was it cracking in?
Oh yeah, no, it was on back then. It was on. I say from like 87, from 87 to like 91, all them years it was going. Yeah, we was going ham out there in the city. Turf wars was going on, but it stopped in 92.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I was a part of that. I was a part of the truce that happened. JT, the bigger figure from Filmo, him and a couple of his big homies came over there. I invited them over, told them to come over to the block. And I told them, like, man, let's go on and, put a truce down, man. And they had my word, because I was pretty much a factor in Hunters Point. So, I had a lot of pull with a lot of dudes from different sets over there. So I went and talked to a couple other dudes. Our neighborhood, Harbor Road, is really one of the big turfs over there. Like, you know what I mean? And I was one of the, the big dogs on that turf. So I went to like Oakdale, West Point, the West Mob dudes, all them. I went and hollered at a few of them. And they was all with it, we was all good. We was all real cool. So they was like, Black, whatever you trying to do, we with it. It's good. So it was good that I had, the reputation I did and had the love I did from them, because I wouldn't have been able to pull it off without having a, stamp of approval. So I ended up getting a stamp, and mainly the 3 main projects, Harbor Road, Oakdale, and West Point. Once we come together, all the smaller turfs kind of like got to follow suit. You know what I mean? Because we the bigger projects around here.
Yeah, y'all the head, we the head. The body got to fall in line.
Got to fall in line. So that's kind of, it was one of those things. So I didn't have to roll around to every neighborhood. It was like, as long as I got love from the ones on the side of me, West Point and Oakdale, it was cool. And they gave me that that stamp of approval. And I reached out to Filmo, told them if they could do the same thing, man, ride over. And whoever got a problem, motherfuckers can chunk them in the streets and get whatever problems or issues they got off their chest. And
and it ain't got to be no extra killing or nothing involved.
None of that. And man, it went off without a hitch. They came over there. You had a few people smashing up there to our neighborhood thinking it was, they was coming to do a drive-by. It was some shit. But when they came out there, they seen that we was out there talking and, letting it be known, like, man, this shit got to stop. We gonna just go on and, stop it today.
That's
And
love.
that next week we was performing with GLP, who from Fillmore, and a few Sunnydale cats down and Dirty Hustles, all them motherfuckers. They came over there to the Stone on Broadway, and man, we've been good ever since that day.
Man, that's a blessing, man. It's always good to, start some shit like that, because the youngest seeing that shit,
Real talk.
For real, and that's leadership.
Down to it's like inner turf shit now. Now everybody cool. Now it's like Harbor is funky with Harbor, West Mob against West Mob, Oakdale against Oakdale. It's like it's clicky, more clicky now, more clicks.
Right.
That are like whole neighborhoods funky with neighborhoods. It's within the neighborhood now, so it's different now.
Yeah. So what led you to be incarcerated?
When I was in Log Cabin Ranch, just getting caught with hella guns and shit, just the fucking turf war shit, motherfucker going around buying all the guns I can have. I got caught with maybe like probably 8-9 guns. Then they kind of let me out and fight my case from the streets. I had money at the time, so I was supposed to go to the youth authority, YA, but I ended up paying for a lawyer, and I was able to get to this boys ranch. It was like a little year to a year and a half program, so I ended up getting there. But that's pretty much the only time I did, besides in and out the county doing little 2 weeks, 3 weeks here. Thank God I never, music kind of saved me. By then I started fucking with the RBL shit in '92.
Yeah, that's what we gonna talk about. That's what I got coming up next, man. Where did you get the name Black C from, man?
It was just Black Chris. It was another Chris in our neighborhood. My boy Chris Bones, he was light-skinned. So we used to hustle together. We'd be out there with our sacks and shit. And somebody might call us and might be like Chris, and we turn around, they be like, nah, Black Chris, or nah, light-skinned Chris.
Right.
So that's really where it came from. They just be like Black Chris. So everybody just start calling me Black Chris. And when I started rapping, I just switched it to Black C, just shorten it. That's all.
For sure. Now, who inspired you to start rapping though?
Really, it's like I got like a couple different influences for different things. It was like Budweiser was my boy who actually was rapping in our neighborhood. He actually got me into the music. But as far as my rapping and my rap style and who I wanted to be like was more like NWA in the group 415 back then. I don't know if you heard of 415.
Yeah,
D-Loke, DJ Duro and them, Brother Broski and them. It was more of them with a little bit of like IMP, Cool Nut and them. But it was mainly our number one influence was really NWA. You know what I mean?
Okay.
NWA and Ghetto Boys had a big influence on me in 415. And then when it comes to my production, it was more like the Code 187, the Butter Law, and Dr. Dre. Our style was more, more LA-ish. And,
right.
Then from there, it was pretty much the hustle came from more like Too Short. Too Short used to come through our neighborhood.
Yeah, that's that dude.
He used to come through our neighborhood before he blew up, and he used to fuck with my boy Fat Boo Boo and James Beasley and some of the ballers and shit from our neighborhood. So Short come through, and he'd hang out at our basketball court and sell a couple tapes. So I always had that in mind when I first started fucking around. I had a dual cassette deck, and I started doing the same thing Short was doing. So them all like my influences for different reasons.
For sure. Mm-hmm. All right. How did the Hit Squad start, and when did you meet Mr. C?
Yeah, the Hit Squad started in the studio. When when I bought the equipment for Budweiser, when I got out of the boys' ranch, Log Cabin, he knew I had money, because I was one of the youngsters who was really getting it back then. Wasn't too many youngsters buying like kilos and going to buy a bird or whatever. A lot of them dudes was buying zips, buying a half zip. Some was probably maybe buying 9 ounces or something like that. But I was really getting my money back then. So he just was like, once I got out, he knew I was going to get back out there at it. So what he did was like, man, Black, once you invest into me, buy the equipment and everything, and let's just try to, create a label or do something, and I was just like, I wasn't really tripping off a label. I was just like, I'll buy the equipment and shit and just help you out. So that's what I did when bought the equipment. One of my boys who told me everything to get, who acted like he knew how to work the shit. Once we got the shit back to the house, he didn't know what the hell he was doing. So that led me to end up getting in the studio and started kind of playing with the shit and start learning. I bought a lot of shit without manuals. I went to pawn shops and all that. So I had to go like to Guitar Center and all them, start asking them, how you plug this up. They start teaching me about quarter inches, RCA plugs, and all that different shit. So, and about
But you learned though.
Yeah, I learned that shit within I say about a month to almost 2 months. I started making all our beats, and I became a producer, as far as like the beat maker. So I learned the SB12, the Roland beat, Dr. Rhythm beat machine, the Boss beat machine. I learned how to work the 4-track. I had the sampler, the SB12, I had a couple keyboards and shit. So I started really playing with it, and we start pumping shit out, and then we end up creating a hit squad out of that. Me, my boy T-Lo, Budweiser, my brother Dre, my younger brother Dre, a few dudes from like West Point used to come through, Tita Lee and all them dudes. So yeah, we ended up becoming a hit squad. And what happened was I started them dudes start faking on coming to the studio. So I ended up making a couple songs, and I also got this from Too Short. He was like, man, you make songs, if you want to get motherfuckers to play it, just name a couple of the popular dudes in the neighborhood, and they gonna play the shit. You know what I mean? Especially the ones who got cars with beat and all that. So you throw it in there, and that's what I did. I made a song called "What About My Niggas," where I just mentioned my niggas and told everything about him. I say he was fly, be dressing fly, and when he might be knocking broads and shit like that, or this dude, he might be getting his money, he a hustler. So I just did a whole song just giving my niggas props, and motherfucker ended up blowing up around there. So, and I made another song called "Rolling Through the Turf" because it worked in my neighborhood, but some dudes was like, damn, brother, been dope if you name some dudes from other turfs.
Right.
So I did it again, and used the same formula and made a song called "Rolling Through the Turfs" of HP, 100 points. So I made it like I was driving through each neighborhood, and I named about 4 to 5 dudes off of each neighborhood, and said it did the same thing. So how they was popping and getting money, and was reputables or whatnot. And from there, I tried to go. I said, I'm gonna take this shit to the studio, to the real studio, to get that fluffy sound. So I got a little cold feet and didn't want to go do it by myself. So I asked my boy T-Lo to come with me and be a part of the group. And T-Lo was like our Ice Cube in the neighborhood. He was hot as hell, dope as hell. So he was just like, nah, a lot of dudes was at him, a lot of ballers who had money was talking about they gonna put him out. So he didn't really want to come to the studio with me. So he ended up introducing me to his girlfriend's brother, which was Mr. C. He's like, man, that's all this dude do is rap, this and that, bro. He'll be good with you. And he left him up there. We made a song called Hit Squad New Jack, where he was just busting just lyrics. I never really heard a motherfucker being lyrical like him. We just had that turf shit. We just was talking about selling dope and fucking with brides and, fuck the police. But he came in there and had a bunch of punchlines and metaphors and shit, to where it was like he was different. So I ended up taking him with me, and man, we didn't look back since. We ended up we had a song. I had the song "Don't Give Me No Bammer Joint." We don't smoke.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. That was gonna be my next question, man. What is Bammer, man, and how y'all come up with that shit?
Yeah, Bammer is just bunk weed, just boo boo.
Right.
For boo boo weed, Reggie, and a lot of people call it Reggie or boo boo or brown weed, whatever. Because Chronic was coming out around that time. So anything that wasn't Chronic was boo boo.
Right. Bammer.
Rolled up wood, was Bammer. So that's where that word just came from. And it just kind of came from my neighborhood, just out of us joking out on the streets. We just was out there joking, and just motherfucker just like, man, that's some Bammer, and it just kind of stuck. You know what I mean? So we always used to use the word. And I ended up just saying, ended up making a song called "Don't Give Me No Bammer Joint." This is before Mr. C came. I made that after I made the "Rolling Through the Turfs" of HP. So I had my nigga.
And they went number 16 on the hip hop charts. I mean, rap single charts, I think.
Yeah. Once we switched it to "Don't Give Me No Bammer Weed," we don't smoke it in the SFC, because we wanted it to be a universal thing. We didn't want it to just put Hunters Point on the map, because I knew Fillmore, Sunnydale, Lakeview, Betrayal Hill, all them wouldn't fuck with it if we were just talking about "Don't Give Me No Bammer Joint." We don't smoke it in Hunters Point. They couldn't relate. I mean, they'll like it, but they're just gonna be like, we can't relate to it because it's a Hunters Point song.
Right.
So I switched it to "Don't Give Me No Bammer Weed." We don't smoke that shit in the SFC. Really just trying to get everybody from Frisco, and it worked.
100. Who came up with the name Rbl Posse, and how did the group start?
T-Lo, which I just touched on how the group started. T-Lo.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah. But he gave us the name too. We was called the Hit Squad, and what happened was we found out that Eric Sermon and them had the Hit Squad. Once they came with the Hit Squad,
we had to change this shit.
Yeah, because they was bigger. We was like, fuck, these dudes calling themselves the Hit Squad. So we and T-Lo were just like, bro, y'all ruthless by law. Fuck it, man. You just, y'all used to use it because he used to always call us, the people in the studio, ruthless by law. And he was just like, man, fuck the Hit Squad, man. Y'all ruthless by law anyway. Won't y'all just go on and use that? And I was just like, oh, that's dope. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So me and Mr. C was going off of ruthless by law, but when we took the cover art pictures, I asked a couple of my dudes from the neighborhoods to step in for the photo. So once they got on there, I was just like, let me add the posse on. So I shortened it because the name seemed too long. Ruthless by law seemed hella big. So I just switched it to RBL Posse, and it worked. It stuck, and never changed. Yep.
For sure. Now, a lesson to be learned. What was the message I was pushing to the people at that time? And were you the producer there too?
Yeah, I produced that whole album. I did all the beats on that, except one. TC did the one with Totally Insane on it. G's by the 1 2 3s. TC produced that. But yeah, every song on that, that all came out of my studio. I took it down there. TC did the Dr. Dre to it.
Man, you was clowning then, man. You was doing some shit.
Yeah. As I said, and this was all within like a year's time. I said within 2 months, I knew how to work everything. About a month from there, I was making hit songs, just in the neighborhood locally. And shit, probably a month or two after that, after Mr. C came, we was in the studio and it was pretty much on. So, we started doing our thing. So yeah, it became I became one of the big producers around Hunters Point. So yeah.
Man, that's dope. That's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
This next question is kind of hard, but what led to the death of Mr. C and Hitman?
Just the inner turf shit. We fell out with our neighborhood. Some of the dudes that was on the cover with us, two of the dudes on the cover with us kind of wanted to do their own thing. Once our album came out and everybody started wondering, what parts they played in the posse, dudes was really just there for the picture. Like I said earlier, I just told them, like, man, come stand in for the picture, because I knew I was trying to be like how the Ghetto Boys in them album covers, first covers was, and NWA and the Posse and all them. They had a bunch of dudes on the cover. When you got a bunch of people on the cover, people get curious about it, look at it, be like, man, something I can relate to this. They like a whole little camp, a whole little clique.
Drawing attention. That's the same way like if a motherfucker walking down the street hella deep. Motherfucker be like, damn, who is that?
Exactly. So that's why I did that, instead of just me and Mr. C being on the cover and we looking like EPMD or some of the two-man groups back then. I said, nah, let me get a couple of my dudes and we're going to be in our projects in our basketball court, take a picture and do the damn thing. So that's kind of what happened. They kind of start wanting to play a bigger role in a group. Some of them start saying like, bro, I want to rap now and all this, but it was like, y'all not part of the group. Y'all is just there for the picture. We be at shows and they come to support, but then people be like, what's one of y'all the DJ, or do y'all rap? What songs y'all rap on? And they couldn't say nothing. So they formed their own thing called Big Block. So two of the dudes went off, they split off, formed their own thing, and they kind of split our turf up, where people start kind of drawing lines in the sand, start picking sides. And once we did our record release party for the second album, me and Mr. C was just on the cover. They all tried to come, and they thought we left them outside, which we didn't. We told them we was going to come back out and get them. The dude from the label was like, man, y'all got to get in there, host your party. We're going to have somebody come out and get all your dudes in. And he never did. He left everybody outside. You know what I mean? Some dudes was mad. Some dudes understood. But that day kind of like severed all ties with all of us. It just kind of put added friction. So we was never the same after 94 record release party at Ruthless by Law. And motherfuckers just started. It was just a bunch of snake shit going on the block where motherfuckers was, shooting at each other on the under and breaking in motherfucking trunks, taking dope, breaking in motherfuckers' houses. We was doing each other wrong, and it was only a matter of time before them guns really came out. And one of them dudes got shot who was on a Big Block side. One of them got shot and almost died. Well, two of them got shot, one of them almost died, and then they came back and retaliated the next day. And Mr. C ended up getting killed. And Mr. C and Hitman was just years later. It was a whole bunch of build up over years. We wasn't fucking with him no more. He was far removed from the shit, but Hitman was big, and it ended up you know, he was kind of young when all that shit took place, so he wasn't really involved when we did the split up. He was around, but he had just came there himself and started fucking with us like in 93, 94. We pulled him in 94, and he got on our album in 94. His album dropped in 95. And then when the shit happened to Mr. C in 96, he really didn't get a chance to be in the neighborhood and enjoy his success of being Hitman. So once he went back, he went over there, started hanging out with the West Mob dudes, the other West Point dudes. They embraced him. He created his own little entourage over there. And yeah, I mean, they was around there terrorizing for a minute. Hitman was over there, you know, doing his damn thing, but I always tell him, like, bro, you gotta leave that shit alone right now. You in the neighborhood, you serving yourself on a silver platter. You too valuable to just be around there and that shit like that. Like, you know what I mean? I never hang out. I roll through, but I catch motherfuckers off guard. I pop up.
Yeah.
By the time a motherfucker try to phone pimp or do anything, I'll be gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't even give a motherfucker enough time to do anything. And a lot of motherfuckers wasn't seeing
us. Keep it moving, man. Shit changed, man. You gotta evolve.
So I pull up and I'm, you know, they already knew we stayed ready when we pulled up. Before a motherfucker could try to set up shop to snake you or do anything, you know, I'm gone. I'm on the freeway. I'm heading up out of there. So he started, once you plant it over there, motherfuckers start knowing your moves. You back into the whole little circle of everything, and which I call it a soap opera. Once you back in that soap opera, it's over with, y'all. You over there fucking with the same bitches. You fucking with the same people. Y'all going to the same liquor stores. You know, it's bound to happen any day. Now you putting yourself out there. Now you're vulnerable, and that's pretty much what happened.
That's real. What kind of deal did you guys sign with Atlantic Records, and how did you get out of the deal?
Atlantic Records, man, we had a nice deal set up. Craig Callman ended up coming out here, you know, and he had some sweet for us on the table, man. It was worth a couple million, and when we lost Mr. C, he restructured everything, but he still did the deal with me because he knew I was the man behind the music. You know, I produced our first 2 albums, you know, was coming up with the hook. So he was just like, yeah, Black, I still want to move on and do the album with you. I just, I want to see if you're willing to do it with Hitman. So I said, you know, I'll do it to where he not replacing Mr. C. He just going to do what he normally would have did if Mr. C was here anyway. So I'll still do it, you know, and just kind of have him fill that void. It's fine. So they chopped the deal all the way down, you know, instead of giving us like a couple million, they just gave us like maybe like 600 and some thousand on the first album, and just said, let's do a test run. If this do good, we give you another mandatory album that's going to start at $1 million and some. If it go gold or platinum, you know, it fluctuates, go up or whatever. But he said, yeah, I just want you to do you. So what happened was, once we signed with them and we got over there, start working on the album, they hired Craig Callman over at Atlantic Records to be the president, because we was on Big Beat. We was on the sub label. We was on Craig's label. Craig Callman owned Big Beat. So he was doing so good with Big Beat. He had us, Twister. He had a few other people he was finna sign. I believe it was like Sibo he was trying to get. It was a few people. I think he had like Fat Joe and all them. But then when he went to Atlantic, he transitioned a few people over there, like Fat Joe and them. He didn't come back for us. Because we were still in the process of dropping our 97 album. So once he did that and he left, he put us with Mike Karen. And Mike Karen was an East Coast dude who was up under, like, he liked the groups like the Wu-Tangs and all that shit. So he didn't understand us. And he started trying to put me with producers from the East Coast. And it just didn't work out. We kept bumping heads. So by the time we finished the first album, started to go in to do the second album, he started trying to tell us like he wasn't gonna open the budget up unless we can come with a single. So he gave me like 10,000 to go in and do a single. I did a single, sent it to him. I got to be more commercial with this. I'm like, bro, Craig signed us for who we are. You know what I mean? He loved us for what we was. So I'd rather talk to Craig. Craig doing big thing. He up at Atlantic. You know, he ain't gonna have time to deal with y'all. It was just a bunch of shit. So I couldn't get in touch with Craig. So I just was like, man, you know what? Fuck y'all. Y'all owe me a mandatory album. If y'all don't want to put it out, y'all got to pay me $225,000 anyway. So
for real,
take the 225 and walk. So what they did was, the motherfuckers end up, you know, once we start going into the lawsuit part and all that shit, trying to get everything right with the mandatory money they had to pay us, they start trying to run my bill up, and they ran that motherfucker up to about $125,000 with my lawyer. So he was just like, man, I see the game they trying to play. They trying to run your bill up until it's about the same amount as they got to pay you, so you can end up with nothing. He said, man, what I would rather do, I kill his money. He said, don't even worry about the bill. My dude Ned Hearn, he was a good lawyer about a one in the creek. He was just like, man, don't even worry about it. He said, what I'm gonna do is I'll just squash that bill with y'all. Just going to go back independent. You know what I mean? I don't even think they're gonna care at this point because they owe y'all. They're going to have to pay y'all to go back in the studio, or they're going to have to pay y'all in order for y'all for as far as the sever ties with y'all. So what I ended up doing was just going back to my independent shit. I ended up working on my another album called Hostile Takeover, and dropped that on Bayside Records. You know, we did pretty good independently. You know, we sold like 75,000 copies out the trunk, and we got paid. They advanced us about 100 and some thousand for that. So I was good with just doing that shit. So he
damn right.
And I killed him, on that shit. So and plus we was already eating off Hitman album. I was still moving his shit. Hitman that sold like damn near 200,000 copies, and I was getting COD like $5 COD
Damn.
CD I pressed up. Yeah.
See, that's what they did. They cut that shit out, man, and started that streaming shit, so motherfuckers can't eat like that no more. But that's another subject.
All right, you're right. They did, man. That streaming shit is bullshit. I love we was moving physical copies, man. That was the best time ever. We was killing
for real. So what was it like working with MC8 and Rick Rock?
Rick Rock, man, that's my guy, man. Yeah, we went over there and met him through Mike Mosley. We actually went over to Mike Mosley's studio to get some beats from him. And when we got over there, all the beats we was liking, he was like, man, this ain't even my shit. That's Rick Rock shit. You know what I mean? He's like, man, what I'm gonna do is, cause we went through probably like 20 beats, and every beat was like, yeah, put that one to the side, put that one. They wasn't his beats because it was a DAT tape full of his beats and Rick Rock beats, but everyone we liked was pretty much Rick Rock. So he was like, man, I'm gonna put y'all in the studio together with Rick Rock, so y'all ain't even gotta worry about me. You know what I mean? I could tell y'all want that type of vibe, and I ain't got that vibe. So he put us with Rick Rock, and man, us and Rick Rock, man, we was locked in. He probably produced 70% of that Eye for an Eye album in 97. So he produced majority of it. I did a couple songs on there, but he did majority of the album. And yeah, working with 8 was lovely, man. Because 8 was somebody I always admired before. When I used to be on the block just selling dope, we used to be bumping the CMW. Like that's why he was just coming into this game, just meeting a lot of people who, when I was out there just being a D-boy, I used to be bumping these dudes, and now I'm like in the studio with these motherfuckers, and they fans too. They like fans of RBL, and I'm just like telling them how much I was like, out there and bumping them, even in Juvenile at Law, the Boys Ranch, I'm bumping. And they just like, it was just a trip to just actually, just be fucking with them like that. And, yeah, 8 was cool. Him and Chill, man, I fuck with them.
For sure. Do you have any PTSD from being the only group member alive? And how does that make you feel right now? Like, for as you being a living legend?
Nah, I ain't really got no PTSD from being the only member, but I got PTSD just from fucking the neighborhood. You know what I mean? Just being around a bunch of drive-bys and bullshit. Cause I can't stand motherfucking I can't even enjoy 4th of July no more. I don't even fuck around with that shit. Like I try to go somewhere, get out on the water somewhere, take my family out and go to fucking Jellystone Park or somewhere, man, because I try to stay away from the hood as much as possible because that shit start going off early June. You start hearing shit, Roman candles and M80s type of shit going off, and I can't fuck with that shit. So, but that's where I really got PTSD from, just the hood shit. But now just being by myself, I'm motivated. Our fans have been some hella supportive. We got a big Latino fan base, and man, they show love. They love us to death, man. So that keep me motivated. At first, early on, when I was working on that 97 album, yeah, it used to be kind of hectic being just knowing like, damn, I gotta go out here and do this shit on my own, and I wonder how people gonna take to the shit with me being by myself or me just being with Hitman without Mr. C voice. That shit used to kind of fuck with my mental a little bit. But as time went on and as Hitman kind of slowly moved away and he went over to the hood and was bullshitting, it forced me to do my solo project, The Last Man Standing, to where, I didn't have cold feet no more. I got comfortable. That album made it comfortable for me to move on as a solo artist. So it was good, that it happened the way it happened, even though I lost Hitman in the process. It was good. It was good. It wasn't forced where he got killed and it's like, oh shit, I got to figure out what to do. I got to go solo. It was already like a year or two in process because he started bullshitting. So I just started working on like, man, let me just work on a solo project and try to do a joint album with this other dude from 11-5, which was a popular group from Frisco. So me and Taylor Tate did a joint album. I did my solo. Shit did good. Got a nice advance for that shit. You know, they gave me like 80-something thousand for it. So I was like, okay, I'm on to something now. I'm finna just
right, for real,
run with this. You know what I mean? And that's what I did. You know, and ain't looked back since.
Right. And then you made it through the golden era of hip hop, and you still here.
Still here, man. Still here. Still putting out good music. Still doing shows. We on tour all this month. You know, it's still moving merch. Still doing
Yeah, and yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you about, man. What made you keep going? And can you talk about, you know, the joint album you got with Joe Fresco?
Yeah, what made me keep going was just you know, the suckers who betrayed me from my neighborhood, you know, because a lot of them dudes I grew up with, man, since we was knee high, you know what I mean? And I was the factor on the block. I'm talking about losing limbs, fighting for motherfuckers, getting shot at. Me and my brother right now, who I'll be on stage with right now, me and D folks and my boy Jay, we was the dudes over there. We was the ones who held the block down for like the 80s through the 90s. You know what I mean? We was the ones that put it down all the way up till Mr. C died. And Mr. C was only up there like a couple years, but the dudes who supposed to have Snake Thing was dudes who we grew up with since we was kids. You know what I mean?
Damn.
So that shit kind of fucked with us, and that's my motivation now because a lot of them dudes end up getting served. They went and did 20 years. They got caught up in the whole little sweep, and they all start telling on each other. And our camp stayed solid. You know, they swooped up my brother and all them. You know, they swooped up a lot of dudes from West Mob who we was fucking with, you know, who people knew was our allies because that's where we used to go hang at. That's where Hitman was at. That's pretty much where he died at. You know, we was fucking with them. And, you know, the neighborhood is like right across from each other. Ain't nothing but a one street that kind of divide both of the projects. So motherfuckers would come outside and just point across the motherfucking mountain and just start shooting over there and try to catch somebody. You know, that's how close it was, you know, from our neighborhoods. But, you know, we all stayed solid. And plus, you know, people who I fuck with, we was over there fucking with them, but we, you know, we was always by ourselves. We are, you know, that's why I respect that movie 300 because that reminded us. They had a big ass block. They had the neighborhood.
Yeah,
it was like 8 of us who stayed solid, who was real family, and we kept it tight. And you know, to this day, we all still here. We didn't go do no time, you know. And all them dudes went and did 15 to 20 years. You know, Booby, who was on my front cover, he had, you know, he went down when his, you know, right hand men told on him. And, you know, told everything about all the shootings. And they tried to come sneak on us and do all type of
dirty game.
And yeah, he had to go serve 20. And now them dudes is out. They all home now. You know, they back out doing their thing or whatnot. And, you know, them niggas is, they watching us shine though. So that's
they got to though, because y'all kept it solid though when they folded. They got to watch y'all shine.
Yeah, watching us shine now. And it's like, you know, and that's really, you know, success is the best revenge, man. You know, I wasn't even tripping on it. It's like we right now, everybody clean slate with me until they, you know, try to do some stupid shit or say something stupid. But for the most part, everybody clean slate with me. It's like, man, we out here moving and grooving, having fun with this shit again. And yeah, we just letting them, you know, it's like, hey, y'all sit back and watch it, you know. That's it, you know, motivation.
Sure. So yeah, you ain't never speak on the Joe Fresco though.
Joe Fresco, that came about. You know, I've been on my mission trying to put out my solo stuff. I've been doing a whole bunch of solo stuff. Joe Fresco is like a RBL baby. You know, he grew up on the RBL like I grew up on the NWAs and stuff. And he, you know, he a West Coast junkie. You know everything from the NWAs, the 415s. Like he a hip hop baby. You know what I mean? But most importantly, he grew up on that RBL.
Yeah,
you know, out of San Jose. We got a big fan base in San Jose. So I just kind of, you know, he kind of worked me into it. I got to give it to him. You know, he kind of came and got a song from me. We did a song together. And later on, he came back to shoot the video. And then when he knew I was working on my album, the Black album that I dropped in January, he was like, Black, I want to try to put something on that. You know, I want to get a feature, try to get on it. And I was just like, you know, I was more looking for people with names like the Jay Worthies, Larry June, you know, things of that nature. And then he was just like, bro, I got one for it. So he ended up playing that song I got on my album called Make It Funky. And I was like, oh, so that got like that MC Breed to it. Like, I like that. And he was like, yeah, man, you know, we can use it as a joint song. Put it on your album, I put it on mine. I was like, all right, you on the album. So he ended up doing that. And it ended up doing good. It was one of my best streaming songs on the album. And then right after that, he hit me up with his other song called Audi 5000. I was like, oh, bro. It's like, man, I like the way this shit reminded me of like back in that old days, like that paid in full NWA era. And he's like, man, he said, bro, we ought to let's do an album like that. I said, if you got more beats and shit like this, I'm a go.
And then y'all killed the visuals. The visuals crazy.
Yeah, he ended up coming with that Coming Ruthless. And when he brought me that song, it was over with. I said, let's go on and lock in and do an album. So we just started going through beats, going through songs, coming up with concepts. And I said, bro, you know, I was supposed to do a song. People was thinking about, you know, we had an idea of trying to get with Yuck Mouth and do an album. Me and Juice was supposed to do an album. Motherfuckers had the idea on the table with me and Sebo linking up. But I ended up just saying, you know what, I'm going to do it with Joe because it's just easier to work with him. He ain't really got that, you know. You don't want to get in the studio with niggas who act like divas and they've been out before, so it's hard to work with them because they feel like they bigger than you or hold more than you or they a better rapper than you. He was a student. He was just like, Black, whatever you say, go. I know you done produced all these other projects. You choreographed the artwork to Hitmans, to the NOHs, Prime Ministers, all these albums you done put out. I'm just ready to sit back and let you just lead the way, and that's why it was easy for me and him. And he just reminded me of Mr. C, just being that dude that's more of a player than a gangster, because that's what Mr. C was. He was more on that player shit than that gangster shit. You know, I was more the muscle and on the gangster and using my voice, having that, you know, that motherfucking like raspy is more like deep baritone voice, and Mr. C had more of a light pitch to his voice. And it was just more the yin to my yang. So, and that's kind of like what Joe Fresco reminded me of, you know, and he got lugs, you know, he'll drop some punchlines and all that shit. So that's what I like about him, and his vocal tone on certain songs. He was like, "Damn, you sound like fucking Eazy-E on this shit. Like, this shit sounded dope." It's reminding me of like nigga like Eazy-E and MC Ren, or Eazy-E and fucking Cube on these tracks. So it just made it fun, man. And we were supposed to do an EP, and the motherfucker ended up turning into an album. You know what I mean? And yeah, we gonna keep it going now because the fans is loving the shit. The album doing, man, fucking good.
And where can the St. Louis fans and all the other fans that haven't heard the album, where can they find the album at?
Yeah, it's called Black Sea, Joe Fresco, and it's titled Ruthless. And you can get it on all the DSPs from Tidal, you know, Amazon Music, Apple Music. Shit, you can get it on, you can get hard copies too, also on www.rblposse.com, or you can go straight to the store if you don't want to go through the website, www.rblposse.bigcartel.com. And yeah, streaming everywhere right now, you know, everywhere, any platform you could think of is there, you know. So even if you want to just stream it for free, Pandora's, your Spotify's, everywhere, man. You know, just go up under, just type in Black Sea and it should pop up.
100. So you said you independent. Do you own your own label?
Yeah, the Right Way. You
okay.
Know, ain't no way but the right way. If ain't the right way, it's the wrong way. That's all. That's, man, that's what we stand on. We try to do everything right, from the music to choreographing, the cover art. That's one thing I always been heavily into, is just choreographing a whole project. You know what I mean? Putting it all together. You know what I mean? Real executive producer. You know, not only just a beat producer, but just really like I like A&R and the whole project from beginning to end. You know what I mean? Anybody that was on the Right Way, you know. So yeah, the Right Way is where it's at right now, man. I ain't really got no groups. I'm giving everybody their own situation at Empire. You know, right now I'm giving distro digital deals and stuff. I'm letting everybody control their own destiny. I don't want nobody having to lean on me, ask me why I ain't did this, why I ain't did that. So I'm giving everybody their own situation through Right Way, where it's more like a label deal versus an artist deal. I want bosses from here on out. I don't want to be after the
That's real, man. Hey, that's real, for real. You know, yeah. and that shows you a leadership skills, and not just that, showing you being a boss. Shit, you showing other motherfuckers the way. Shit, hey, motherfucker might want to drink. Shit, I might know a couple motherfuckers might want to drink. Shit.
Exactly. So it's like, if you believe in yourself, put your money up. You ain't got to come, looking for me. I'll give you your own situation, give you your situation where you got your own dashboard. You can upload your own videos. They're gonna go to Vivos and they're gonna go to iTunes. You can upload your own music. It's all there for you. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Put together your own marketing and promotion.
100. So what upcoming artists do you feel like that's next up, in the Bay?
Of course, Larry June, he killing it. Nephew doing his thing. Besides that, man, you got Lil Kayla. You got I like my boy Young Lot. He doing his thing. Really, I'm naming Frisco because Frisco don't get too much shine. There's a lot of people in the Bay.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, for sure.
Too many to name, but as far as Frisco, let me give it out to the two queens of Frisco, Lil Kayla, So Vicious. Like I said, Young Lot. You got my boy Lil Bean and them doing their thing, Zay Bang, man, Lil Yee and them over there in Filmo, yeah, it's a lot of dudes, man, who I feel is really really doing a thing right now out the city. They just need that exposure, and hopefully we get enough, I don't even gonna say labels because I just want them to just kind of just be able to just get that one song that's gonna crack to where they don't need no label to get that extra exposure. You know what I mean? It's all really nowadays. It's all about just kind of pushing yourself hard enough to where you get them streams in, where you're doing it like a La Russell. La Russell on his own, doing his own thing, doing his own concerts. He doing the same thing like Larry June. Like Larry June financed his whole shit through Live Nation and everything. He paid for that.
Okay.
Putting up no money. Even though you're going through Empire, Gazi and them kind of, it's more like a joint venture thing instead of like a label just kind of babysitting you, putting up the money. You know what I mean? So yeah, shout out Gazi, man, because I've been fucking with him since like 06, 05, 06, and it's been nothing but up ever since I fucked with him. I ain't had a problem. It's been up, 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 up. And he been keeping it to where, he deal with me hands on. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't even got access to Gazi, but I remember him in the cubicle over at In Grooves telling me to take a chance with him. And I was one of the first ones that took a chance with him, brought my whole RBL catalog over there. And we've been eating together ever since. You know what I mean?
It's dope.
Yeah.
Breaking bread,
Yes,
real. Like Jesus did.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So did you ever work with E40 or Mac Dre?
Yeah, I got a few songs with E40. Mac Dre, nah, but that was my guy though. Me, Mac Dre, Kilo, and us. Every time we got together, we chopped it up. I never got a chance to do no music with him, but we sat down. We did a lot of shows together. When he first got out, we probably did over maybe 5 to 6 shows together, and every show we always kicked it. You know what I mean? Like we grew up with each other. We always talked and chopped it up. And to this day, me and Kilo is real tight. I fuck with him and Jay Diggs and all them. You know what I mean? I always respected Mac Dre. He the king. Ain't nothing bigger than that out here. Period, blank. He the top dog. You know what I mean? And I wish he was around to be able to see all the love and respect he got from everybody, because it was gonna happen. Even though he died, when he died, everybody still clinged on and he blew up even bigger. If he was here, it was gonna be even crazier.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, because he was infectious, man. Everybody loved him. You know what I mean? Everybody. I don't give a fuck who you was. You had to be a hater if you weren't fucking with Mac Dre. Everybody. Everybody, man. So, rest in peace, man, to Mac Dre, man.
Rest up, Mac Dre, man. For real, for real. What's next for Black Sea 2024?
Really, man, just finna start working on this other book. I got that other book out right now, Black Sea, part of survival from the block to the booth. Pushing that, pushing the merch. On my website. We got a few more designs coming out. And besides that, man, we're just gonna keep these licensing deals going with these movies, and hopefully get on these, these like NBA 2Ks and and Maddens and all that type of stuff, trying to land a few songs on that, just to keep that that revenue stream coming in. And besides that, back in the studio, we got I got my solo album that's gonna come drop next year. It was supposed to drop this year, but me and Joe album doing so good, I pushed it back. You know, and I'm gonna make a couple changes. I got like 14 tracks sitting called this album called Heavy in it. And
Okay.
you know, right now I'm just was adjusting, trying to get features. I got a few people in mind. I'm trying to get on this, a few surprises. I'm trying to get on this next one. And you know, me and Joe gonna get back in there and do a part 2 to the one we did. And that's pretty much it. You know what I mean? And besides touring too, you know, we're gonna keep this going till we can't tour no more. 60, 70 years old. We trying to be out there like the OJs with
No,
this shit.
for real, man. They doing it in rock and roll and all of that shit.
We gonna do it in rap. It's about that time. You know, look at 40 and Short and all them, man. And Snoop and everybody, we all in a 50+ club. You know what I mean?
Man, ain't nothing wrong with it, man. I'm rooting for it. That's why I created this when I fell in love with hip hop, to bring back, you know, the past to the future.
Exactly.
For real.
Exactly.
You know, and then I got a record I want to send you.
Yeah.
For real, for real. I got 2 questions from the fans before we get out of here, man. What do you think about the Keefe D arrest of Tupac Shakur?
Man, all I can say about that is, like, you know, keeping it too gangster goes wrong, man. You know what I mean? Sometimes you know, killers don't talk. You know, you got to be quiet. You know, I don't give a fuck what type of deal you put forth with the police or whoever. You got to realize ain't no statute of limitations when it comes to that murder shit. So sometimes it's just better keeping certain details to yourself. You know, and you know, motherfuckers sometimes just be wanting motherfuckers to know how gangster they is or what they did or what they was a part of. And look, I mean, that's all I could really say about that. You know, I would have just kept it, you know, I would have worked it as much as I can without giving out those details about handing a gun off and driving a person to this and that. You know, you could have left a few things up to everybody's imagination. You know what I mean? So I say when keeping the gangster goes wrong, man, and now you're looking crazy. You know what I mean? Because now whatever they give you, it's gonna pretty much be life when you like over 60. Shit, 10, 20 years is over with, especially motherfuckers black. You ain't been out here eating right and ain't healthy. Shit, ain't no telling if you're gonna get to 80.
Right, rest up Tupac.
Yeah, rest in peace, Tupac, man.
Did you ever meet Pac out there when he was in Oakland?
Nah, I never got a chance to meet Pac, but we always had mutual friends. You know what I mean? My auntie and them, a few people I know them was around him, but I never got a chance to even really like get with him and try to really you know, really fuck with him like that. You know what I mean? I was really kind of on my own hype, but yeah, I would have loved to kind of get in the studio and fuck with Pac. I know for sure we would have hit it off. Because real recognized real.
Right. And then I got one more question. This is the last question from the fans. Did Master P really come out there in the Bay and sell records out his trunk and shit?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Hell yeah, Master P was out here. Master P was doing his thing when he was out here. You know, when he put out that compilation and all that. You know, he didn't do as good, but he was selling out the trunk. You know, I think his biggest thing, his biggest claim to fame out here was doing that West Coast Bad Boys. You know, but he was trying to do shows and shit. He was trying to sell out the trunk. But a lot of people used to think P was like was a weak rapper. They didn't really fuck with P out here on the rap shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the best thing he could have did was taking that game back home, that Bay independent game back home, and taking his rap style back home and putting them on the motherfucking whatchamacallit beats, the KOC and all them dudes. What was that squad name? But yeah, man, them dudes just, I think that was the best thing he could have did was go out there and start all over again, man, because he blew the fuck up. And man, it wouldn't have happened out here, I'll tell you that much. In the Bay, man, motherfuckers be out here a little bit, they're hating a little bit. So not a little bit, a whole lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even now to this day, it's hard for us to kind of push our shit around each other because, you know, motherfuckers don't support like that. That's why the South, love in the South. The South is different, and that's why they benefiting from it. Even the East Coast,
you know, the more you show face, the more you know. Like right now, what you doing? This a campaign. You running the Black Sea campaign right now.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So motherfuckers gonna see this interview and they gonna come tap in with you, man. And with that being said, I want to ask you, man, what message do you got to the youth, man, before we leave?
Man, you know what I mean? Really, man, just like they always say, you know, this kind of cliche, but like they saying, man, the streets is a myth. Fuck that street shit. Worry about yourself. Worry about your immediate family. And if you're trying to do this music shit, you know, do it out of love. Don't quit your day job. And once you're doing it and you do get on, if you're doing with just anything you love, you do anything you love, you'll never work a day in your life. You know what I mean? It's just like I feel like I'm getting over in this game because once I fell in love with the rap shit and I stayed in love with this hip hop. I've been getting paid for it. And I feel like, man, it's crazy that I go to a club and I get paid to actually perform 20, 30 minutes, get a nice lump, good check, get free alcohol, you know, get to hang out around some pretty women and shit. And man, I mean, you can't beat that. You know what I mean?
Not at all.
So I love it, you know. So anything you do it out of love and do what you love. Once you do what you love, like you say, you would never work a day in your life if you're doing anything you love, man. That's why I try to tell my kids and everything. What do you want to do? What do you love doing? Let's invest into that. That way you ain't going to a job every day where you're feeling depressed because you got to go punch the clock, you know, or even a career that you don't want. Even fuck a job, just a career. You want something that you love doing, so you never work a day in your life. You can't wait to get up and put those ideas together or go in and get that work in because you like doing it. So that's what I would say.
100. Once again, I appreciate you coming on the channel, you know, expressing your form of hip hop, you know, and showing the fans that you still here, man. For real.
Sir. Yes, sir. Still here,
You
man.
know? Yeah, this is another episode of When I Fell in Love with Hip Hop. I'm your show host, Rbl Posse. We tuning live from St. Louis, Missouri. We out of here. Peace.
Yes, sir. No love.